And then I picked up this 20V2, and I've had the 20V3 on the air now since March of 2023. And it's been rock solid. It's a beautiful, beautiful radio. But I've always lusted after the 20V2, just like you said, the two-tone, the chrome, and it's just beautiful radio. And Bill Carnes had one. And so in my process of restoring the 20V3, we became very good friends. And Bill Carnes and I have a lot in common. We're both pilots, and we are both lunatics. So anyways, you got to be to do this kind of stuff. So he told me come down and pick up his 20V2, and I purchased a few other items from him and took a box truck down there to Wimberley, Texas, and hauled this thing back in this last April. And doing the 40-meter modification, there was no documentation on it, so I wanted to leave it high L, and I wanted it to be as original as possible, and whatever I did could be reversed. So I just went through and talking with Phil about how did he derive his calculations for the tank circuit and the buffer and driver circuits and all that, and I just did those for 40 meters and got it on the air. And and then, of course, this is all still a learning experience. I don't have a broadcast background. So, I don't even know what air change is. So, anyways, but it's been total fun. My microphone's an RE-20. I love these Electro-Voices. The receiver is an R390A. And I've got a monitor scope. I'm watching my modulation. I want to pick up a really good quality AM monitor. And one of these days, I've got a line on a nice actual Collins console, studio console. But it's going to take some time. The guy doesn't want to let it go right now. I think he's waiting till he goes into a nursing home, and then I'll be able to get it. So I'm just using a Behringer Ultra Voice, and I'm just using it as a preamp for the mic. And that's going right into the Schlockwood 200. And then that's going right into the 20V2. But I actually have a switch assembly. It's got like 7-8 relays in it. And I can switch between the 20V2 or the 20V3, which is the flick of a switch, and all of my control. I designed all of the push-to-talk stuff with both these rigs. The Signal magazine is going to be publishing an article on the modification of the 20V2 in the next coming issue. So I don't know if you're a CCA guy or not, but you'll probably get a chance to see all that insanity. So Paul, Whiskey Alpha 3, Victor Juliet Bravo, AC0RL.
AC0RL, nice transmission, Jerry. WA3VJB. Yeah, many years ago, I was either a member or was going to become a member of the CCA, but it was at a time the CCA was very heavily invested in the junior Collins models, the ones that were degraded to no longer include AM. And it wasn't quite fashionable within the CCA political environment to feature on an equal basis the 32V series and the 75A2s and, that sort of AM-capable station. So despite a certain amount of advocacy on my part that those Collins were either equal to or even better quality as far as how substantial they are compared to the junior Collins models like the Icon, they just wouldn't hear it. So I never did keep my membership going. So to hear that they're doing publishing your article on your 20V2 modifications for 40 meters is very encouraging. Sounds like it's really changed. I know Bill Carnes possibly as a successor to Floyd Sue. I think it was Floyd Sue and I who never saw eye and eye. I think Bill was much more diplomatic for one thing, and much more receptive to the idea of featuring the older Collins models that I've just named. So maybe there's been a kind of an awakening. You may know Jim Young, W8MAQ. He's had a series of broadcast transmitters as well, and actually did the research and design work on this 300G to make it a tri-band capable triode transmitter. Not an easy feat. He used some of the original ceramic coil forms and rewound a set of coils at the driver stage for each band, and then reworked the final tank coils with one of the slidable discs on the correct tap to allow operation on those three bands at the final tank stage as well. And my contribution to the project was to use a T368 exciter deck mounted in the front door of the 300G, where the glass used to sit, to reveal the grid current on two crystal oscillator plug-in units on the original configuration. The T368 exciter deck fits perfectly now in a split glass configuration. The door opens and leaves the T368 exciter deck right there as the door opens. You'll see a picture of it on my QRZ.com page. And it gives a very stable VFO design to it that's got Collins ancestry, so it's in keeping with the rest of the transmitter. I want to draw your attention to a modulation monitor that you can pick up fairly easily, surplus, if you keep your ears and eyes out on the broadcast reflectors. It's a General Radio 1931A. The 1931A was made obsolete by an FCC change that allowed AM broadcast stations to modulate as high as 125% with peaks up to 133. The asymmetrical nature of things is not something we want on shortwave. But the 1931A was quite a fine modulation monitor. Octal tubes, has a flashing vapor tube for peaks, and it's good through 40 meters. It actually has a twin input design where you move a tap over from broadcast band through 160 or approximately 80 meters through 40 meters. So without having to rebuild the front end of the modulation monitor, it works quite well as is with just a gimmick pickup coil near your RF tank somewhere. So that's also in the picture if you see that there. But you can pick them up for probably $100, and the diode output monitor point is wonderful to feed your house audio system. Low distortion, high quality, really gives you a sense when anything goes wrong. But I think the Schlockwood's doing an excellent job for you. I had seen an article from Jim Wood that was on one of the hobby broadcaster websites talking about how the Innovonics spawned the idea of a Schlockwood. But it's one of its competitors now is this Max audio processor. I don't know if you've heard about that or not, but two AMers have developed a thing called the Max audio processor. I had a test mule here for a review that I published to eham.net, and there's a YouTube video of me putting it through its paces, and it has a bit more capability tailored to what we do here on the licensed hobbyist AM parts of the band. So if you ever get tired of the Schlockwood or want to pass it along, I would recommend the Max audio processor too, that does a very nice job. And yes, I also am fond of the R390A. Boy, we could work that over as well. I've had several of them over the years, as well as the older sister, the R390, which when you use the diode output of that receiver actually sounds better than the R390A, because it does not have the shaped characteristics of the mechanical filters, so the audio quality is actually even better on the R390. Anyway, back to you, Jerry. Didn't mean to get an old buzzard going here, but since it became a one-to-one QSO, it's been very nice to visit with you. Nice to make your acquaintance. AC0RL. What's the QTH there, too, please? WA3VJB.
Hey, Paul, no problem. That's what this mode is good for. And one thing, I don't do a lot of operating as far as on sideband. I'll do a bit of CW. I like doing contesting. I did was one of the Route 66 stations. We just did the Kansas QSO party. And my shack is all set up for multi high power. Matter of fact, I'm putting up another tower in the next couple months. Plus, I'm running out of room on my one tower, so I'm putting up a second one. And I got you on the Genred 1941A and the Max audio processor. We'll look into that. Just right now, my pennies are going to be spent on concrete and digging holes and that kind of thing. But no problem. And I just took a look at your QRZ page, and I just love your mixer panels, and I mean all of the it looks like really nice Collins stuff. Yeah, and the CCA has definitely changed its focus. They are so much more into the vintage things now, and they're really doing a lot. Their reflector really reflects that, with people keeping a lot of the Collins gear up and running, and a lot of good advice on the reflector. Yeah, you can see I've got a set of Gold Dust Twins, and I've got a 32 V2, and of course I got it paired with an SP600, but you know, shoot me. And then I've got a homebrew amplifier. It's actually 3 amplifiers with a common power supply. It was homebrew. It was done by a guy named Johnny something, W4GD, and he did some fascinating work. I've got the Schlockwood set up for 130% positive peaks, and it does like 95% negative, and it looks like it on the scope. It looks really good. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to run this for a little while, but I am hoping to get a nice mixer panel or mixer board. You know, a vintage Collins. I want it to be all Collins if I can help it. I even want to get a Collins on the air sign for the thing. But hey, this is going to be my last go around, and I'm going to call it a night. I'm just not a late night guy. But Paul, it's been such a pleasure, and I'll hang in there for your next go around, and then I'll say 7-3. So, Whiskey Alpha 3 VJB AC0RL.
Oh, your signal sure has come up. Wow, AC0RL. WA3 VJB. You were 20 over 9 on that most recent transmission, Jerry. Wow. And I can again affirm that you've got your audio sorted out quite nicely. I don't know what you sound like in person, but whenever I don't hear any exaggerations in the way someone has their EQ dialed in, or just the whole profile, it's got my seal of approval. I have an RE20. I actually prefer the response of the RE27, and it in turn sounds very close to this Sennheiser 421. If I went back and forth between the two, it would be hard to tell them apart, but I like the look of the 27, and it fits in the same 309 cage as the RE20. The board that you see in that QRZ.com photo is a Gates from 1980. That's solid state. I actually declared it too new, even though it's 44 years old. And I went with a 1948 RCA that has octal tubes, and it's of the same model that Elvis Presley crooned into at Sun Records all those years ago. So it's kind of cool to have that going too. And then the little remote board that I'm using tonight, I don't think I have any pictures of it on the page, but as I mentioned, it's primarily for use down the telephone line when a radio station would do a remote broadcast in those days. So yeah, you can really go crazy with it. Sounds like, you know, you're well on your way to being in that status if you're not already there. I transmit exclusively on AM. I don't have any sideband gear. I don't like it. I don't like the nature of the conversations. They're just not satisfying. And as you point out, AM is really meant to be more of a storytelling, collect your thoughts, and spend some time replying to the other guy's train of thought. And that's what I really, really enjoy for now more than 40 years. And I'm just pleased as punch to be able to have some of the gear that you see in the picture there. Just been very fortunate to be able to provide a good home for it there, Jerry, as you know. Can't think of much else directly. I think you might have the nomenclature wrong on the general radio, 1931A. I think I heard you say 41. There, you know, you'll find it in a web search. And it's highly recommended for the reasons I mentioned, that it already goes through 40 meters. And I'll look for you again. Tell Bill I say hi. I think it was OTQ. What was the suffix? Trying to remember Carnes's calls. He might remember me. It's probably been 15 years since we were in touch. But I'm very heartened to hear that the CCA has opened its mind to some of the other rigs that are at least as worthy as the ones they had featured 20 years ago when I had kind of a bad experience with them. So I will reconsider them. We're very close to the Collins Rockwell facility at Annapolis that used to be Arink. And they have a Collins logo now on the top of the building. I ought to take a picture of it, put it on my QSL card. It's only about 10 miles from here. And, of course, it's not the winged emblem that I would prefer to see, but I can understand that you want to keep the Collins motif there at your station, Jerry. So thanks for the very nice QSL. I'll enter it in the QRZ.com logbook, so we've got you fully annotated. And you might mention whether this is a regular gathering that you've got here on 7290 in the evenings. I do hear you guys. And actually as far west as California when the band really turns long. I'd like to check in again and say hello and try to stay in touch. I'm usually on earlier in the evenings, just after dinner, before the band really comes in. As well as during the day when you get the Eastern time zone on 40 meters with some pretty good signals. So good night, and thanks again for making acquaintance, Jerry. Been my pleasure. The 20V2 is doing such an excellent job. Wonderful to listen to. AC0RL, WA3VJB Annapolis. Clear with your radio.
WA3VJB, AC0RL. Oh, yeah, fine. Thank you for the correction. I did say 41. I got it as 41. And also, find business on the RE-27. I'll look into that. Well, you know, for at least for the next few months, I'll be a poor boy, so I'm probably not going to be making any extra purchases for a while. I'm going to have to live with what I got. But I've got way more than most, so I have no complaints. And, yeah, you know what? Since I've gotten this on the air, I've been doing mostly 40 meter AM. But we're going to soon get into the season that I'll be on 75 meters with the 20V3. We'll be doing that. There's a local group here. It's like a Western Kansas, Colorado contingent, and they like doing the 75 meter AM on Wednesdays. And Bill Carnes' call is November 7 OTQ, Oscar Tango, Quebec. Yeah, so we got KE9APA out there and Tribune, and there was a whole gaggle of others in this area that we like doing a round table. The other night we were on 40 meters, and we had a guy from Maryland. Funny. He was coming in just as good as you. I mean, there's a little QSP, but there are times you're just booming in. So, hey, this will be my final, and Paul, it's such a pleasure. I appreciate your feedback. I take it to heart, and thank you for the compliments. Because I'm technically competent, but this is all still very new to me. So, hey, I'll say 7-3, and good evening to you. And you have yourself a great evening and great tomorrow. AC0RL.
Thanks, Jerry. It's been my pleasure, and I'll look forward to a contact again real soon. AC0RL. Good night from Annapolis, WA3VJB, now leaving the air.